Hey, Scott Hylton, Scott Talks. Today I'm talking about The Mercy of the Gods by James S.A. Corey. Now, I always do the audiobooks because I'm a little dyslexic, so it's hard for me to deal with books and reading. It's always been a challenge in my life, but I enjoy the audiobooks. They're fascinating. And these guys did the EXPANSE books, and I've heard they're marvelous books. I do not do super a lot of reading. I do it when I have time, helping out my wife in the garden. It's quiet. Sometimes riding the bike in a quiet area or doing things that are reasonably quiet because I can stay focused. But riding the bike is kind of, you want to stay focused riding the bike. If you're doing for a walk, you can listen to an audiobook and just watch out for cars backing out of the driveway. That's the thing. Drama audiobooks, sometimes they're all right. They're all right. I enjoyed James this past year. That was marvelous. Project Hail Mary was marvelous. The Mercy of the Gods, I know Amazon's kind of looking at it for a new show. And it's from the guys that wrote The Expanse. These guys, their pen name is James S.A. Corey. Their real names are Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank, and they both live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So it's easy for them to get together and work on these books and knock them out. So that's great. That's just great. I mean, they do a great job, I've heard, with the Expanse books. I was anxious to get this. And I know some of you out there think it was the book of the year. And I was like, ugh. And I know a little bit it's me. Being slightly dyslexic here, it's hard to follow fantasy books because they always name things weird things, and everyone's got a weird name. And this wasn't too bad with that, but keeping up with the characters, it was a slow build. It was a little depressing to start with. It's action adventure. You want a little more action. There was some action adventure, but I was like, well, what are they going to do for an entire series besides these people getting captured by aliens and Earth is doomed and all this stuff. And you're like, dang, this is kind of a downer. Where's the action? Where are the heroes? Where's the space battles? The follow-up thing, The Life Suit, is a novelette, a small novelette based in the same universe. And it tells of what could be to come. And probably that will be more of the focus. Maybe they'll be mixing a little bit of some Live Suit stuff with what happened in the origin of how Earth we just got our butts kicked. These aliens show up and we're done. I mean, they take us to other worlds, use us for whatever. But these scientists get a little lucky because they need some brilliant minds from all over these. They've captured like 3,000 different races. I mean, no problem. They've had some troubles, but they've had, humanity wasn't that big of a deal, despite the fact we had nuclear capabilities and all this. They just show up and with little notice, and people are like, you do as they say, because they've got these 3,000 other races they can rely on, and many of them were used as foot soldiers and things to keep us in line, or else, we die. And to show they were mean business, they wipe out 1/8 of the population like that. If you were in a crowded room, you would see people just, and you'd be like, suck. People just vanish, blow up into little bloody messes. And you'd be like, good golly. And they would tell you to get in line or else. And you'd get in line, you're waiting for somebody to show up. And everybody in the room that shot their mouth off and wanted, I want my rights, and I want this, and I want that. Okay, everybody's in line now. You're scared to go to the bathroom. No, what? They don't know. They're aliens. They don't know what you want. So it kind of drug for a little while, and it was hard getting used to the characters. And for me, it's easier if, they're simple names, simple places, whatever's going on, fine. And I know that's not everybody. I know I'm just different. But I found, I love Project Hail Mary, kept up with that. Easy is a brilliant book. James was brilliant. I love James Patterson's stuff. And you're like, James Patterson? You're like, yeah, I know, but I love it. It's simple stories, the Holmes, Marple, and Poe. It was addictive. And I've heard they're going to turn that into TV. And I said, that it was written like it was a TV thing. It was nothing earth-shattering or into the world stuff. It was just that. Of course, Project Hail Mary was into the world stuff. And Andy Weir's so brilliant. I mean, and James Rollins always does a great job. I like Rollins. He's always got the science, the myth, and the religion mixed into a story that could be possible. And here's the science why. He tells you at the end some of the real science behind the story and how it's based on some real facts. And he only tweaks a couple of times to get it right, And you're like, oh. And even Andy Weir, who's really sticks with the science, just really goes into great detail of how this is the reason why this is working. And we're going to see the movie soon, next year. Project Hail Mary is in The Martian. He did The Martian. Really sticks with the science, but tweaks it a little bit. You got to be creative. It's like Hollywood. You got to have something going on. So The Mercy of the Gods, in the back of my mind, I was like, a TV show. What are they going to do? And then I saw the live suit novelette, and I said, well, maybe they'll do a little more of that. That would be cool. That would be a good mix into the thing. And now they got the book 2. That's the actual book will be coming out in 2026. I think it was April. So we'll see where it goes from there. We've found out, the Carricks, and he spells it Carryx. Carricks, they're bad guys. But they've got all these other alien races to deal with when they've been captured. And they finally found a way to communicate with them. And it's kind of a slow drag. There is some action adventure and people die. And, they have some stuff that is interesting. But it was a little bit of a slow build for me. And I know some of you love this stuff. And but it's not the Expanse, right? You're looking for the Expanse with heroes and anti-heroes and spaceships, and you're like, yeah, they're in space. They were in space, and now they're on another planet. But it wasn't quite that. There was some problems. The Carricks do have enemies, and some of those enemies have figured out how to play the long game against the Carricks, because Carricks are tough to deal with, especially after 3,000 species planets have been captured and some wiped out, just gone. And you either fall in the line or your species may just get wiped out because you're not worth anything to them. You got to be worth something to them. And the book is neat for the way it finds that out and how the humans have to deal with, how are we going to be worth something? And why won't they protect us? If we're so valuable, why won't they protect us? And then the realization what they have to do kicks in. And that's interesting in the book. That's interesting. The mercy of the gods. I mean, Carricks are kind of like the gods, and humans have to find a way to deal with them. And there's an enemy that is part of this way to deal with them and could be the future. And humanity has to see their part in this. So, interesting is what I was reading the book. It kind of drug a little bit, fine. And Daphne is the main character, and you're like, okay, well, Daphne, and you got these other characters there that aren't as interesting, but, we'll see what happens with old Daphne, and if they do turn this into a show on Amazon, or if it just continues as a book series. The next book, the live suit looks more adventure-based, and we'll see if they can take care of the Carricks and hold their own a little bit without getting their butts too kicked. I still have some action in there, even if they're getting their butts kicked a little bit in the beginning. So for me, it wasn't perfect, but and I had a hard time picturing it being the next Expanse, because I love The Expanse. The Expanse was an extraordinary show, and I've heard the books are just extraordinary with great character development. And this drugged a little bit, and there were interesting people in it, but they were all kind of scientists, and they just had some slightly different personalities. And I didn't fall in love with anybody. I'm hoping the best for Daphne. Okay? So I think that's the right name for the guy, But they're on a planet called Anjin. But Anjin's got a different history about it. Daphne Alcor. Couldn't be Smith. That would be easier for me. Okay, never mind. You guys are like, Scott, you don't count. You don't count. That little dyslexic problem you got, that doesn't count. But let's see. The Carricks, part Empire, part Hive, has waged a war of conquest for centuries, destroying or enslaving species across the galaxy in its conflict with an ancient and deathless enemy. So there is an enemy for the Carricks they had to deal with. When they descend on an isolated world on Anjin, the human population is slaughtered and put into chains. Yep. Best and brightest are abducted, taken to Carrick's world palace to join prisoners with thousands of other species. All these species are working on whatever projects the Carricks want them working on. You either do good, find somebody else, And Daphne, he's an assistant scientist, assistant to a prestigious scientist is captured along with his team. Even he doesn't suspect that his particular insight and skills will be the key to seeing past their captor's terrifying agenda. Because they have an agenda. And you're either worth something to them, in the greater scheme of things. If not, they'll just, you're no good to them. And they really don't tell you exactly what they want in the long run. What's their end game? They assign you projects. You do really well at that project, or you're gone. I mean, it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. Swept up in a conflict beyond his control and vaster than his imagination, Daphne is poised to become humanity's champion and its betrayer. Yeah, you got a little bit of that in there. This is where the story begins. So this is the origin of this. This is all, because it starts out with them just a bunch of scientists and the politics of science, blah, 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 blah. And then finally it kicks in. It's like the TV show Invasion on Apple TV+. It was a little slow starting. You got these different characters. It's like Game of Thrones. You know how they have different storylines going everywhere. And they're slowly going to merge these characters a little bit because, this happens to them, all this alien activity starting and something's going on. And finally, in Invasion, when you actually see the aliens and they attack and you can see what they're dealing with, you're like, oh, crap. That's when the story just went from here to here for me. It became must-see entertainment once that happened. But it took a little while to get there. And this will probably be the same. It's taken me a little while to get poor little Daphne, No one builds a universe like James S.A. Corey, or both of them. The Mercy of the Gods is wilder and weirder than you can imagine, and when it ends, all you want is more. John Scalise, New York Times bestseller, and I love Scalise. He's got that neat little humor to him. And I did the the dinosaur the Kuju project, the one with the Koju, the dinosaurs. What do they call it? You know what it is. But and I'm ready to do another John Scalzi book. Will Wheaton read it for audio if you wanted to know. And this, Jefferson Mays reads the audiobook. And does a good job. So John Scalzi, I like him. I do. I want to get another audiobook for him. And he's got a neat little sense of humor. And they say one of the tricks he likes to do in some of his books is give you a character with a name that could be a guy, could be a girl's name, and then really not tell you if it's a girl or a guy. So if it ever gets made into a movie or TV, they could cast anybody. And you're thinking in the back of your mind, if you're a girl and you read it, and you went, oh, this is a girl. Because there's some scenes where he has to do some heavy lifting. He gets put in the character in this kaiju book, book, Preservation Society. Yes, that was it. Kaiju Preservation Society. I was like, well, I got to see what this is about. It's not Jurassic Park. It's not that great. It's not, it was a good story. But it was also, it drug a little bit. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. And Will Wheaton was fun listening to do it. And the fact he was reading it, the character was a he. And in some of Scalzi's books, he'll give a character a name that you go, oh, and you're like cheating. You're looking in a book, you could look and see the spelling. Is it a Y or an I? Or is there any little hint that this is a girl or a guy without saying it's a girl or a guy? And then if you're a guy, you probably assume it's a guy. If you're a girl, you assume it's a girl. Right? You don't think about it, but you think, well, this person is this. And sometimes he'll avoid that and let you imagine it yourself. Because, we always like to see ourselves on TV and books. But, this person's like me. This is the person. This is July 29th, 2025. It's a Tuesday. They've had Comic-Con. They just introduced some people from Star Trek Academy and had Comic-Con and introduced a few of their characters, and they were able to tell who they were. And one guy's an outsider. And he said, "You're good. I'm going to be like the audience." And there's always that one character that's in good writing that has no idea what's going on if you have a familiar setting. He's coming in to Starfleet like, what's going on? And what are these people about? And for many people watching, he's going to be the character they're going to look at and say, I'm on board with whatever you are. And it's like the old show ER, and you see it again in The Pit on HBO Max, which is from the producers of ER. They had Noah Wiley for ER. He was the new doctor. He was the new guy, and all this crazy stuff is happening, and the other doctors are telling him what to do, because this is crazy ER stuff. This is not what you all learned in medical school. This is, you got to anticipate and do this and this. It's not everything you've learned. And that's the character that the audience is identifying with. And in The Pit, they have several new doctors. So you have several different personalities and types. And this guy is going to be that character. And the Preservation Society, it was the main character. And I'll say he, because Will read it as a he, and I'm not sure how it's written in the book. But he gets thrown into this Jurassic type. I mean, this is like Godzilla level. These aren't dinosaurs. These are huge monsters and kaijus. And he gets just thrown into this. And we get to experience it from his point of view. And it's neat to have that. And Daffin is definitely the low man on the telephone pole. And all of them are getting to experience stuff, these aliens and Anjin, and figuring out how to communicate and figure out how to keep the peace a little bit without getting killed by the people watching them, by the other aliens. And then they find out they have some competition, and there maybe only be one winner. So we need to survive. Yeah, so that's an interesting part of the story. It's considered a best of 2024 book, okay? It's a first contact book, interstellar book, science fiction, space exploration, space opera, and suspenseful. It is all that. It is that. I will give Captain's Wars series, The Mercy of the Gods, all that. If you love that, you're going to probably love this. And if you read the Expanse books and went, these guys know what they're doing, I'm doing Captain's War. And I'm going to get Live Suit Novelette, and then I'm going to get the other book in April. Good for you. It was a little slow for me, but I am getting the itch for the second book, because near the end, it kind of sets up, we got away, and what happens next. And I was like, it was all right, like Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing was entertaining. Weird names of places and weird characters, but it was neat. It was a neat story and neat experience, and my daughter recommended it. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to see the next one, and then the next one. So I wanted to get the next book in that series. I wanted to go on. And with James Rollins, I don't always keep up. I was usually working all the time, doing stuff. Now I'm sort of semi-retired. I've got time to go out and garden and listen to audiobook, ride a bike, probably on a podcast. And if it's near traffic and noise, probably got my bone conducting headphones love my bone conducting headphones. Got these, see? They're neat. They're neat, but they're open ear. So traffic and wind will still hit, and you can hear a car coming up on you. That's good when you're riding a bike. They say if you have earbuds, you should only have one in so you can listen to the cars and traffic. And the scariest thing is people backing out of driveways. I mean, you're looking for cars over your shoulder every 10 seconds, or going through an intersection or something. I usually jaywalk across the center. There's a light over here and a light over here. I'm going down the middle because I can see the entire lane of cars coming, and when they disappear, just walk that bike across, get into median, usually a big grass median, wait, another thing of traffic coming, wait, they disappear, I'm on the other side of the street. And I'll cheat and use sidewalks because, hey, why not? I'm in Florida. They let you ride on the sidewalk. They're not that big a deal on that. I've rode on the street. I've rode in bike lanes and looked over my shoulder. But you got to watch out for people turning right. They don't pay attention. They don't. You'll be like a little victim of the Carricks at the end. You just, that'll be the end of you. And you can have a helmet on or anything you want. Yeah. So, will I get the second book? For me, it was kind of no, but then it was also, but what happens next? Yeah, and I've got Audible. I've got 1 credit left. Probably renew. And the cheapest way to do Audible is get the membership for a month, or they want you to have had the membership before they give you credits and stuff. So you get the membership for a month, or you get a whole year and you get 12 credits. And if you get the plus feature, you get free books that you can listen to in between. So you listen to your book, and then you can just go back and find some free books and do those. And then you can do another paid book that's, the hot new book to get. And that's guilty pleasure for everybody. Everyone wants to see what's the new thing. And you could go to Hoopla and get the library book version. I've done that. That's all right. And you have to get the email reminder that's do you want to continue listening to this book? Or if you don't, push it. You're probably going to lose your book and have to get it again or renew it again. And then hopefully it'll keep up. I always write down the chapter number in my notes and the time index of how much time is left. Because if something goes glitchy, and it did one time on Audible where I lost completely the whole book, and I had to fast forward and figure out where I'd been, listen to a little bit, go forward, get another couple of more chapters, and I figured it out pretty quick because I kind of knew in the back of my mind how far I had and how much time I had left. So I always write it down just in case something gets glitchy. It's only happened once, but and especially with Hoopla, Canopy, things like that, when you're using your library card and you're getting free books that way, they're not always available. You can put in a request. Okay, I'll put in a request to get this book and borrow it. But if the book's a year old or so, there's a great chance you'll get it. And then you can listen to it and keep up. Then you don't have to pay a credit. You don't have to pay nothing. Just keep up, renew it, and get to the end of it. You're done. So it's a free way to do it. And the cheapest way to do right now, I'm on Audible just buying credits. You buy 7, they average about $10 a book or so. And that's not bad. And the easy way to do Audible is if you're doing credits and you're buying longer books, don't buy the 1-hour books. Don't buy the novelette. That's just crazy. Try to get that on Hoopla or whatever. But, buy the novelette. If it's, I average, if I get 7 credits, which means I don't have the plus feature for the free books anymore, which is fine. I got other sources for free books. Or I drag it on so much that it's been another month, so it's time to do another credit. And you just look at the price, it's under $10, so I might as well just pay cash for this and not waste a credit. But it's only 2 hours long. Yeah, well, I'll put it on my wish list and wait for it to go on sale. And they're always going on sale. Everything goes on sale. So I think I got one of Scalzi's books and it's just in my library, but I got it on sale. So I don't think I used a credit. I think I actually got it on sale and paid for it. So you just wait it out. They'll send you stuff all the time. Hey, we got a sale on some of the stuff in your wish list. Really? Thanks. And you pay cash. And if it's a 2-hour novelette, that's up to you, bud. That's up to you. You gonna pay cash for that sucker? when you could get it probably on Hoopla for free and just bang through it in a couple days or a day or whatever, that's up to you. Will I do that with Live Suit? You never know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. And then I'll get the itch for the third book. Book 2, really. Book 2. I probably will, won't I? Because I'll be wanting to keep up. I'll be waiting if they do the TV show. Because right now, if you do the Internet Movie Database and check for The Mercy of the Gods, it just listed as another project that it's being looked at. But there's no real stars attached. There's nothing. So it's been sitting for a while. So Amazon's like, yes, the space adventure is going to cost money, a lot of aliens, a lot of money. There are a lot of aliens in the background that have to be put in. That's going to be, they could do practical suits and just have a couple key aliens and then just have them all over the place. I think James Cameron did the the Aliens movie with like 3 suits. That's all he did. He said he didn't care. He said, I'll make it look like 100 aliens. It's no big deal to me. He had guys in costumes, running around and doing this and that, and then it's coming from the other direction. It's the same guys. But, and he made it look like. And then he had the Queen alien, right? So, and he had Sigourney Weaver back. So he had that going for him. But he was James Cameron before he was like the biggest director in the world. And he pulls off Aliens after the first Alien movie and made it more action, more adventure, more edge of your seat. It's like, dang, that was good. And, with the right showrunners and the right people with this Captive War, Daffin, they got to cast you. What are they going to do? They're going to get someone good. Hopefully they'll get someone good. And you have to carry the Captives War. They'll probably call it Captives War. I'm sure they will. And maybe we'll see some live suits in it eventually and see where it goes from there. I'm enjoying Foundation on Apple TV Plus right now. I thought it's been great. It's a little hard to keep up with sometimes. You have to really, you can't just be casually watching it. You need to see what's going on and understand it's one of those shows. And Apple's got a lot of good stuff. If you've never tried Apple TV Plus, get Apple TV Plus. See Ted Lasso, see Stick. See Shrinking, they're great little shows. See For All Mankind. If you're big into science fiction and you haven't seen For All Mankind, oh my gosh. It's like a dystopian future where the Russians beat us to the moon and everything that happens after that. Because, we went to the moon because of the Russians. That's the only reason, because the Russians were building the space race. We're going to the space race. We're up against the Russians. It's the Cold War. And Kennedy's going to spend all the money he can to get us to the moon. That's the deal. And beat the Russians. And in this show, the Russians actually beat us. So not only did Sputnik get up in the sky first, the satellite looking down on everybody that was owned by the Russians, but they also beat us to the moon. And we were like, ugh. And then it comes out that we could have landed first. But NASA's being so, because Apollo 11 was the one right before Apollo 11, the Russians got there. But we had Apollo 10 orbiting the moon for a test run with fuel on it. And it opens up with those 2 guys going, all we got to do is land. That's all we got to do. Take this baby down and land it. And the other guy's like, well, that's against orders. We're not supposed to do that. He said, yeah, but we'd be the first people on the moon. We would do it. We could do it. All we got to do is land it. And he's like, no, we're not supposed. We're supposed to testing. We're supposed to be testing the safety, NASA's safety, and that becomes a big issue. We could have done it. We could have been first, and it's a neat show. It's neat, and if anyone out there knows what happened with Kennedy and Chappaquiddick, you're gonna love there's a throwaway line that just barely gets mentioned, but you're gonna be like, oh, wow, that changes everything. That just changed everything. When that happens on the show, you'll be like, oh, my gosh. No, wait a minute. That means, oh, my gosh. And that it changes. History changes. And we stay in that space race. We continue to push forward. We don't just go to the moon a couple times, and then the Russians go a couple times, and then they concentrate on Venus, and we concentrate on Mars. And that's the end of the space race. You know, everybody's fine with that. But no, it keeps going. There's a push, you know. Women are getting into space faster. There's a push for that. You know, we go beyond the moon faster because the money's being spent. Everyone's pushing. The Russians are here, we're here. Push, push, push. So everything's happening a lot faster. Getting to the moon and staying on the moon and developing a base and all that's going to get pushed forward. So, yeah, that's good science fiction. And I hope Captive Wars, the more I talk to you guys about it, the more I want that second book to see what happens next to Daphne. So maybe I will get it. Maybe I will sneak around and say, one more credit. One credit on Daphne. I'll give Daphne a credit. Maybe I'll give Daphne a credit. I'm following the author, so I'll get the notification that'll say, because Audible's real good at that. And Amazon's good at that too. Everyone's good at that. Amazon owns Audible, if you don't know. So for me, it'll be another good listen, you know? So despite the fact I think it's slow, despite the fact I am encouraged by the guys that did The Expanse. The Expanse was amazing. And I might continue my adventures with Daphne and get the live suit free on something. I don't know if I'll buy. It's on my wish list. So if they make it real cheap in a couple months, something pops up and says, "Oh, we've got this on sale for 85% off." Really? Cool. I might throw in for a 2-hour adventure for a few bucks and listen to it, or just say, "Oh, cool." Then I'll go to Hoopla and get it free. Probably do that. But continue with your books. Continue with your audiobooks. Just whatever you enjoy. I know this has been a long, broad podcast. Oh, kind of like video podcast. Oh, no. But you guys enjoy, and share. And I'm sure these people are Hugo-winning, New York Times best-selling authors. So they've got the criteria. They're worth the listen. Just know it'll be a little slow. And you'll have the itch for the new show if Amazon ever puts it out. It spends the money. I know there's all these streamers are like, forget spending money on stuff. It's just not worth it. We've got our audience. We've got everybody we can possibly get. Netflix has everybody. And they're starting to add ads and stuff like that, and all this. So they could figure out how to put an ad in a book. They'd be Chapter 3, but in the middle, I did that in a book report. In the middle of the book report, if you're really reading these book reports, I'll buy you a Coke. I wrote that in the middle of the book report to see if the teacher would put a big red circle around it or something, or say, "You owe me a Coke." And there was nothing. And I was like, or she probably just went, "Yeah, again." They probably get that crap all the time from students. But you guys like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed Mercy of the Gods, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a comment. I hope you did. I tolerated it. I thought it was okay. I thought Fourth Wing was better. I thought Project Hail Mary was way, way better. Kept me engaged from the beginning. I mean, you've seen the trailer for the movie. If you haven't heard the book, it's pretty much like the book. And I know you have a lot of questions. You looked at that trailer and went, he's not an astronaut, but what is he doing in space? It's answered in the book. And Weir's pretty good at logical answers and scientific facts. And the reason we had to send that particular guy with he's kind of like Daniel from Stargate. If you remember the first Stargate movie, he's the lone guy that thought outside the box and actually figured out the symbols. After all those experts that they could bring in, I mean, they could only bring in so many people because it was a military operation. But the lady brought in Daniel because he was very, very astute about Egyptian culture. He had his own weird theories. And that's the way this character is. Ryland Grace. If you big church guys, Hail Mary of Grace. Yeah, Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary. So, He snuck that in. Anyway, Grace is kind of like Daniel on Stargate. He's got a very outside-the-box way of thinking. He wrote a big thesis in molecular biology, and his peers were like, nah, that sucks. And he was like, so he went into teaching. And they got a whole, when the whole world is in danger, this lady, Strut, what was her name? Anyway, she's in charge of fixing this problem. The entire planet has put her in charge. Anything she needs, if you're watching the trailer, you saw an aircraft carrier. She snaps her fingers. I need an aircraft carrier, and I need it from China, Russia, America, anyone she calls. I need an aircraft carrier. Boom, she's got the aircraft carrier because they're trying to save the entire planet. And her job is to do that, and she's trying to get Grace on board. And Grace is, I don't want to do this. You got to have somebody else. And he's kind of like Daniel. He thinks outside the box, and she gets kind of pissy with him, pretty much treats him like a coward, and really doesn't want him on the project much anymore, but he's still making valuable insights. So they keep him on the project to continue these insights and to train. If you don't catch it in the trailer, but he's actually training people to go in his place as they're learning about this thing that's eating away at the sun and trying to find a way to fix it. So they have some idea what's going on, but why did that one star not get affected? What kept that? What was the deal? And they need to build the ship. They got to get there 11 light years away. And you're like, wait a minute, we can't go 11 light years now. And it's only the near future. But there will be a scientific way. And Andy Weir, the beginning, he goes, I woke up from a coma. He's actually got amnesia. That's explained in the book. Why does he have amnesia? Why did he wake up from a coma? And all that's based in scientific facts, but the book opens the same way. And that's neat, that's interesting. And this is interesting. I mean, we are in deep crap trouble in this book. We're at the mercy of the gods, the Carricks. And humanity is screwed, just like if Mount Olympus came down and attacked us all. What would we do against Zeus? That'd be tough. We tried to nuke him, but I think he had lightning bolt all our nukes and see from his little perches, where we were going to do stuff and just knock over, and that would be the end of us. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'll give them that. Very creative, very interesting, and since we're getting humanity's part in this future that will be the solution to taking down the Carricks, we'll see. Next book. Now I've got it all interested in it. I'll probably get the next book. Okay. Like, subscribe, and share. Have a wonderful day. Yeah, this has been fun. Enjoy the book. Don't get over motivated by it. Don't think it's the greatest book ever. Some of you will think it's the greatest. Scott, it's the greatest book I've ever read. I know. And probably listening to it makes it drag out a little more. It's not, you can't just sit there and flip through the pages. But we'll see. I'll probably get that live suit free in the second book because I've got The Martian for Andy Weir as the book I'm going to read. I've already bought it, got it cheap, and I'm going to read it. I've already seen the movie, so now I'm going to, they say it's a good book. They say there are a lot of scenes that aren't in the movie. It's a good book. And I've done Artemis, Andy Weir's second big book that was not as good. And I think the people that did Project Hail Mary are going to tackle Artemis. And I was like, yeah, the girl is not as likable as these other guys that were in the other stories. And she's the main girl because I'm like, she's kind of like a smuggler. And you're like, oh, like Han Solo? Yeah, kind of. So they need someone that's really likable and doesn't cause the problem that it directly, like in the book, she causes a lot of the problems that she has to fix or save the moon. And you're like, she can't be the one causing 100% of these problems. Someone else needs to cause it, and she needs to help fix it. That would make her a little more likable. But she's her neat way of smuggling and having contacts, and the fact she lives on the moon and can't go to Earth because of gravity. She grew up that way. She can't go back to Earth ever. And it's an interesting story that people born on the moon stay on the moon. You know, their bones are too weak to go to Earth. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting concept. And Andy Weir said that the guy that's like the police guy on the moon, he said, I'd love to have The Rock. I'd love it. And I was thinking, yeah, he'd be good in that role. He doesn't have as much to do. I would combine him with another character so that he's doing this character that opens the story, teaching her how to moonwalk in this old spacesuit. I would have that be The Rock. And so they're kind of friendly, but he also getting arrested her and things. I would have him just play both roles as, you know, one character and just get rid of the other character, and have those scenes all go to The Rock. That way he's got more to do on the screen and make her a little more enjoyable to watch. You know, get someone like Lisa Kudrow. She's crazy, and she would be good for that role. Oh, we've got some lightning starting around here. I'm in Ocala, Florida. We got some afternoon lightning. Oh boy. So again, for the last time, I promise, like, share, and subscribe.